Hey, Greg Berzinsky here for Beardbrand Alliance. Seeing two definitive trends when it comes to the way men are presenting their beards in the 2020s. On one hand, we have the classic beard, and on the other hand, we have the modern beard. In this battle royale, who will win? And it seems to be that people are polarized when it comes to the way that they are grooming and presenting their beard types. We have the classic beard, categorized by slightly longer length, bushier sides, higher cheek lines, and generally a more natural presentation. And then we have the modern beard, which often involves some kind of fading, starting at the top of the ear, down into the beard, definitely a shorter beard, although you can have a long beard and it still be modern. But for the most part, they are generally shorter, heavily faded on the sides, and often have a shorter mustache. Two camps of thought. Where did this come from? The history of beards, if you know anything about beards, if you look back into the beginning of photography and even paintings from the 1850s onward to about 1920s, most men in the United States and actually throughout the modern world were sporting some type of beard. It was very popular for men to have beards, and you would see pretty much, I would say, a classic beard. There were definitely shape choices within that, sometimes a bigger mustache, a bigger presentation on the sides, longer, or some type of styling. But for the most part, those beards would all be considered a classic beard. That trend would go away in the 1920s with the advent of the safety razor and trends changing as they do in fashion. We see them coming back in the 60s and the 70s, would be definitely categorized as a classic beard. Think wider, fuller, more natural, less studied, less groomed. And then beards would go away into the 80s and 90s to return at the turn of the 21st century with the hipster. And we saw beards coming back in a big way. We have men like Chris Millington, we have our own Costa, who are some of the early adopters of beards back in the aughts of the 21st century. And these beards would all be considered more classic. They were generally fuller, they were less shaped on the cheek, they were not tapered into the sides, and generally longer in approach. This trend would go forward from the aughts into the teens, but then what happens? I'm thinking one of the reasons the advent of the modern beard came about was because of social media and really maybe even YouTube. But you're seeing more and more guys experimenting with everything from fashion to hair to clothes, as well as with their beards. And so you're seeing a lot of guys play around with their beards for the first time. And with the exception of having a barber who was really into beards, most guys were trimming beards at home, if they were even wearing one in the late 90s. And for the most part, most guys weren't. So you were left to your own devices, and most guys would choose to leave a beard more natural as it was worn in the 60s and the 70s. So with social media, you're seeing more men wearing beards, great, in the teens, but then you're also seeing variations in beards for the first time with the creation of the modern beard. That modern beard, as I said before, often has a fade that goes from the top of the ear down into the cheek, and a much, much more gradual lengthening of the beard from often zero down to the ultimate length of the beard, which in a lot of cases is no more than an inch and at most 2 inches. As I said before, that was really not seen before. I think you're going to look at pictures now and of beards that are characterized as modern and say, hey, that's a 2020s beard. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I think it's great that we have style trends that actually dictate what's happening during the decade. I think that's perfectly fine. But I think you're going to see that that type of beard is going to be a 2020s beard. Just like the big, natural hipster beard is definitely a 20-teens look. You can see how these trends take hold. They grow, they spread throughout often a decade, and then there is often a big swing. So as that swing, I think, happened because of social media. And it also happened with the return of the barber and the return of the haircut. A lot of people obviously have gone to barbers, but a lot of people were not going to a barber as often as they are now. A lot of guys will go to the barber 2, 3, 4 weeks. When I remember back when I was a younger guy, you'd go to the barber or go to a hairstylist every 3 months, and it was just like your hair grew out, you'd get a haircut, but only as you really needed the haircut. A lot of guys take great pride in the way their hair looks as well as the way their beard looks. And so barbers are just going gangbusters now with business, with a lot of men wanting to have their hair cut by barbers. When you have your hair cut by barbers, it's easier to get not only the fade in your hair, it's also easier to get the fade into your beard, which also propels the style of the modern beard. So hand in hand, we have social media, YouTube, as well as the growth in barbering and people using a barber, hand in hand, creating a trend that we're seeing in the 2020s. Here are some examples then of the modern beard. As I said before, characterized by that faded side and very well-groomed mustaches, often shorter. And then looking at the classic beard. This is Chris Millington, who is a model now, and was one of the first adapters of a beard as a model back in the aughts, back in 2010. And you can see him here with a big beard and a big natural beard. You can see his cheeks very high on the cheek line there. Gifted bearded guy, obviously, lots of coverage. But if you look at him now, he is sporting a much tighter, much more groomed, and much more studied beard, aka the modern beard. So he is the perfect example of a guy who started out with one type of beard and moved over to another camp. I'm the guy who probably hasn't moved over. I have literally never had any kind of fading to the sides of my beard. Why haven't I done that? Part of it has to do with me wanting to have enough hair at the bottom in order to cover over weaknesses that I've seen in my beard over the years. That might be one of the reasons, but honestly, I like having this weight down here. And the only way to get weight on the side of your beard, if you want a more square presentation, is to let this hair grow a little longer so that hair comes down. And you can't be fading this up down to here and expect to have a lot of hair down here. It just doesn't work. Mine might be a style choice. The fact that I like having a squarer beard, even when it's short, I like it square, and you need some of that hair on the sides in order to do that. I actually am considering, after the holiday season, of maybe exploring the modern beard, which I never have. And so we're going to see how that goes. Maybe at the turn of the year in January, I might be looking for a barber to give me the modern beard. We will see. So which camp of thought are you in? Are you the classic beard? Are you the modern beard? You can see both here at Beardbrand. And for the most part, though, we tend to be on the classic side. Think of Eric and Carlos with their fuller beards. Although Carlos has shown us many examples of how to fade a beard with his series of impersonations. Carlos is the one who is more likely to fade his beard than Eric and myself. So which camp of thought are you? Are you classic or are you modern? Comment below and tell us what you are and what you like, and if you would ever consider doing the other version. Till we meet again.
The other thing you should know about Beardbrand is that it's not just about the videos and the information and the grooming and the products. It's also about you, the individual, the inside as well. My name is Bud. I'm a veterinarian. I'm a 4 vices kind of guy. And if you're going to grow it, you better own it.